I'm Martin Wanacott, team owner of a two-car team, Team Betty Surf Shop, and the car I drive is the Toyota Chaser. So some of the biggest events I've been to, for me anyway, obviously one of the highlight ones was Germany and Iron Drift Kings. That's run alongside Drift Masters. That was a big one. Didn't do so well there, but the atmosphere was amazing, so that was great. Ireland for us is always a really good place to go. We class it as big events anyway because of the way the Irish are so good. Then we've got BDC was something, the British Drift Championship was something that we had a big part of, and also Drift League, which we've been doing for years and obviously do quite well in that. So that's sort of the biggest ones for us. Then we do go to, for demos, that was probably competition side of things, and then for demos we end up at Silverstone for Jap Fest and a couple of other events, and we do Castle Combe, all sorts. Yeah, we get around. Yeah, so one of the probably most interesting ones is one of the furthest ones we've done, Iron Drift Kings alongside Drift Masters. Just such an amazing place to go, but also the weather there is just so odd. 1 minute you're sweating, typical UK sort of person, not liking the heat, absolutely roasting in the car, to the next minute these amazing lightning shows of flashes of lightning and thunder and people swamping out their pits. It's just so mad, such an amazing place to be. The funny thing is, it's one of the best experiences I've had drifting, and yet probably the least amount of driving, because I put the car into the wall quite earlier on, which was a shame because I had the track dialed very early, but just took too many risks in practice. Car ended up too damaged to mend properly, so we were a spectator most of the time, but the atmosphere out there was absolutely amazing, and why we say we don't do it just for the driving, because I took no notice of not driving, to be honest, in the end, because it was that good. So yeah, it was one of the most interesting places to go. So if you're new to drifting, well, for me, I didn't even worry about the drifting first. I just I was into cars and I bought a Jap car, and then I seen the drifting. So I just went to an event that was teaching you a little bit. I went there, and as it was, I could drive a rear-wheel drive car quite well. So I suppose if it's someone now wanting to do it, you've just got to look for the places that are doing it. I would say don't even buy a car, because there's so many places now that they'll rent the car out to you. It might seem expensive when you look first, but believe me, it's not, because if you're going to get into it, you're going to be spending a lot more money anyway. You haven't got the risk, they've got the insurances, they know how a car's got to be set up to put you in it, to see if you enjoy it, and I think you would get the most out of a day hiring a car with a coach there, and they will make sure you do the right things to see if you know whether you're going to enjoy it or not, because the next stage after that becomes a whole new world. So what to look for in one of your first events, I would say definitely you want to be going with a few different people that you know, because in groups it's always a lot better. You've got people to talk to. If things aren't going amazingly, you've still got the banter, and that's why you're there. Maybe look for somewhere not so far away, which is hard for us down here, but look for somewhere as close as you can, because the nearer you are, again, problems is less to deal with. Somewhere that's not fast, a massively fast track, something nice and simple. Don't think too technical, and ideally the people running it, if you've looked into it, and they're very beginner friendly, because it can soon feel very daunting with the people that are there. But generally speaking, in drifting, even if you've got your pros there and all that, they are always willing to help, long as you're humble, you know, sort of accept that you're new to it, don't try and be the big guy, big girl, then yeah, just keep it simple. Drifting's actually always been very easy to get involved in if you want to, whether it be because you're following drivers or whether you want to get into driving, because you've literally only got to go on any of the social medias now. And just like myself, most of the drivers, if someone's into drifting and they're want to ask questions, they get hold of me, I always answer back, as long as they're not, a bit of an asshole, then you're fine. Obviously, everyone's got to learn from somewhere. I've always found anyway, from the time I started, when I was doing it, and didn't know who to speak to, right up to now when I'm one of the drivers, I've found it's always been exactly the same, and that is, everyone's happy to talk, everyone's happy to meet you at track. I get people will come up to me talking to me like they know me, and I don't know who they are until they say their name from Facebook, and I've been talking to them for months and didn't even know it, and that's what I've found the whole way through. So you just got to not be afraid to talk to people. Some essentials for taking to drifting when you're going drifting. I mean, obviously, if we're talking low-key, just starting drifting, because it's a bit different for us. We take a lot of gear now, but generally, you obviously want a toolbox. You could go to Alfred's and get a toolbox. You don't have to spend a fortune. You just want a general toolbox, or even most of the time, these toolboxes have got way too much in them because you use about 10% of it. So you could look at the main size nuts and bolts on your car and take just a handful of tools if weight's a problem. Obviously, if you can, you'll take a couple of arms or something of the ones that you're likely to break. That's where, if you're going with a few of you, it's handy because you could all take something slightly different. If you're driving the car to the track in a way, then you want to think about maybe rear lights, possibly, because you need to get home, and that is the thing that gets broken a lot. You don't need loads of stuff because you're going to get caught out on something. We take a whole van full and still we end up with something broke that we can't mend. You're alright if you've got an S-body, BMW, let's say, because usually someone's got something, but you'll never be able to take everything, so you can literally only take some of the small stuff, and you've got to go from there. It is a bit potluck, to be honest. People try to come up with some special kit that you've got to have, but there is no special kit. You could take a few random nuts and bolts, but other than that, yeah, just take the main things that you think you will break, but you will learn very quickly the things you need to bring. So sim racing, I actually think it's really good. I don't do it anymore. I did, and I actually used it in 2019 to my benefit, but I used to just use it to dial in where clipping points were on a track. But for someone who's not done any drifting, even not driving, it's just been proved it actually works, because I've seen so many people turn up at track and they've never really done any drifting, and they can go out and they can literally drift like they've been doing it for a few years. What I would say is, so for someone who hasn't drifted, I'd say it's a very good way of getting into it before they go spending a lot of money, although you can spend a lot of money on them things now. But for someone like myself, people who have already done drifting and getting into sims, you've got to be a bit more patient because it's harder to get used to it, but you can still benefit in different ways, especially if you're into competition and all that. I actually haven't got one now, but it's purely because of room. I'm not very good with computers, so I struggle to even set the things up, so I've sort of gone away from it. But honestly, if I had the budget, I would go back to having one, but it's just purely an extra at the moment that I can't afford, so I haven't. But I would recommend a sim to anybody. It's got to be the way. You can do 1,000 laps and it costs you nothing after you've spent out on the gear. So yeah, it's definitely the new way, the young way, and it's making it harder and harder to win the competitions out there with them all coming in after. So So first time cars, obviously it's, you've got the usual ones, the BMWs, 350Zs now, which is becoming a lot more popular. I've got a Lexus that I've been doing, which is, would be classed as a grassroots car. Just don't spend too much. Don't spend too much, but don't, it's going to sound a bit cliche, but don't try and budget for this wrecker, because you're going to end up spending money. You need to start with the cheapest you can afford, basic platform, but remember there's going to be a contingency you need in it. If you've got £3,000 and you spend £3,000 on that car, you are going to have to find some more money. Don't get me wrong, you don't have to do too much. You can get a second-hand seat, get a handbrake. You don't need very much. Lock the diff off and away you go. You can try it, a harness maybe, and you can get it all secondhand. So it's just try and keep it basic. If you're really getting into the drifting and it's not for the car so much, don't be putting body kits on it, because believe it or not, the standard bumpers, especially on a BMW, you can drive over the things and you can put them back on. So keep it basic, but make sure the car is in good condition. Servicing is massive. So many people ignore the service inside of it, making sure everything's right. Again, it can all be standard. You could use standard bushes, everything. It's going to be fine for doing your first drifting, but it means you go to track, and the biggest waste of money is going to track and getting 2 laps in and the car breaks. So making sure that the car is up to scratch, just imagine it's going to be a road car and it has to go through an MOT. If it goes through an MOT properly, then it's more than likely to last a drift event, and that's what you need to do to save some money. So things probably not to do that most people end up doing when they first get a car to go drifting is definitely your lock kits. Wise Fab, Figs, as I've got, anything. You just don't need it. If you really want to feel like you've changed your car a little bit and you're talking like some spacers, you just don't need it, because you need to learn how to drive that car first. You're never going to use that lock because you're not going fast enough. It's more what you should do than not do, really, I think. I mean, like I said earlier on, don't be putting big body kits on it in that, unless it's a car that you've obviously done originally as a nice car and then you're going to use it, but you've got to accept they're going to get smashed. So if you're buying the car to go drifting, then start the drifting first and worry about the body kits later. Again, keep it simple. Just some suspension. You don't need top of the range suspension, so just get some eBay suspension. It will help a little bit. Weld that diff up, put the seat in, like I said, harness, and that is it. You don't need anything else. You don't need to worry about anything. You could, like the BMWs, they make the rev limiter higher and things like that. You really don't need it until you start competing or something like that. You don't need it, and it all costs. It's all more risk on the car. Just keep it as basic as you can. People getting into competition for the first time, speaking obviously from past experience, is try not to take it too seriously. Obviously everyone says it, just treat it like practice, which is almost impossible to do, so I'm not even going to go there with that, but that's essentially what you're trying to do. You go out, usually practice is fine for people if they're pretty confident anyway, but it's when it comes to obviously qualifying is probably the hardest thing in drifting, and something I suffered with for years. I used to, as they say, win practice. Used to get everyone saying you're doing amazing, you're the best one out there, you're gonna like wipe the board of everyone, and then I'd go out in qualifying and you overdrive is usually what you do. It's not that you make big mistakes, but you just try doing too much. You don't realise that you was already good enough driving as you were, and you try another 10% and you just go over the edge, or just look a bit erratic. And that's what I did for years. I have got a lot better at it. You still get your moments, but I'm a lot better at being able to sort of hold my concentration and just keep calm. But so for anyone coming in, you just got to try and switch off to it. You got to accept it's not going to go right all the time. Don't set yourself too big a targets, basically. And that when it comes to the battles, some people are better than others at that. I'm not too bad at battles, as far as I think I forget what I'm doing. I just start treating it more like practice, and you just want to get on someone's door, or you want to do a lead, a good lead line for the driver behind. So I find that that's the easier part, and believe it or not, it gets easier the further you go on in competition, because you just start to get into it. I can be very negative to whether I'm going to win a battle at the beginning. I've always been like it, and by the times I get to top 8, then I stop thinking thinking about it, and all I want to do is have amazing driving with the other driver, which is usually a mate anyway, and you go out and you just want to put on the best show. So yeah, you just got to try and enjoy it. You will get nerves, don't think you're not. They are good as well for concentration, and just keep doing it until you get better. The Toyota Chaser you see beside me, it's been in competition now 8 years, which we were surprised at the other day. It's actually probably the longest car I've had in competition now, but it never feels like it because we built everything of this one ourselves. I had the shell itself, I had a couple of years before that, in about 2015 I suppose it was, something like that. And it sat around because I had the JZX90 at the time, and I was going to build 100 and then I changed my mind. The 90 got tired and old, and we were just about to actually, funny enough, scrap or sell the Chaser shell, and I was sort of imming and ahhing over going a different chassis, S chassis or whatever. But I do like having a different car over the perfect drift car, if you like. I knew that I could probably jump in something else and be more competitive instantly, but we do like having a car that gets a lot of love, and this thing's definitely always done that. Karina especially was against me going something else. She really liked the idea of having the big Chaser, so I sort of got talked into it and we kept it, and it was very short term. I had to build this car in, I don't know, about 3 months maximum, something like that. So we started stripping it all down, and we got Huxley Motorsport to do the cage. Obviously was the main thing. It had a little bit of a bend in the front, so we had a bit of extra work to do on that, because I've got all these ideas and Huxley's so good with fab stuff. We ended up going a bit further than we thought we would. He'd done some amazing stuff on it, and we built the car, and like I say, I'm sure it was about 3 months. I was working night and day, and we got the thing ready and up and running. So since then it's probably been rebuilt about 4 times properly, I'd say, properly stripped down. But every year I tend to take it apart and always doing something different. To this day it's had so many different changes on the back, especially the back end and inside, because I get bored and want to change it. I've changed body kits on it. Obviously we've made every part of the body kit now on it ourselves. We molded it all ourselves. I do the fabrication now, and I wouldn't do a cage, but I do all the space framing work at the back. That's worked the best it's ever worked, with obviously learning all different things throughout the years. It's had a couple of real good wallops and stood the test of time. So again, testimony to how Huxley builds a cage, because the thing's still not bent when it goes on the alignment at Volkscraft. It's always straight. So the car's really stood up to everything, and it's won a few trophies, that's for sure, even for its looks, funny enough, as much as for what it does. So yeah, we're pretty proud of it, and we got fed up with it. A couple of years ago now we swapped over to a 1.5 engine and had nothing but trouble. Purely bad luck, I think, which meant we were chasing our tail with other things. It was the worst 2 years I've had in drifting, and I was falling out of love with it. So I bought a GT86 again, went back to that. Would I be better in something smaller? But then we got fed up with the 1.5, so we built the 1J that's in it now. We went back to a 1J because that was what was always good for us for years. We built the 1J in here ourselves, obviously some of the engineering done by a local company. Put the engine together ourselves, and the thing's been absolutely bulletproof for the last couple of years since, and we sort of fell in love with it again last year, building the team up and bringing Matt in with his PS. It made me fall in love with it again, and now with the 2 cars together I absolutely love them, and this thing flies now. I've got nothing really I need to change on it. This will be the first year that we don't take it apart, and we're building the camper instead, that I should have done about 3 years ago. So yeah, we love the Chaser. It's not going anywhere, and we'll keep trying to keep up with them youngsters that's coming in. So one of the, well, wives' tales, as you say, but I'd say more misinformation for me, and one I don't agree with anyway, when people are going for the most grip they can get. You hear them often talking about, I've dialed more grip in, I've got it faster. I probably was prone to it a little bit a few years ago, and I've actually backed off, and I've probably got less grip in my car than I've ever had, because there's more to a drift run than grip. And I believe I'm a much faster driver. I can chase harder with a looser car and less grip. So I've been dialing grip out. I've actually learnt to concentrate on side bite, but dial out some of the grip so that the car is easier to drive. That's all it is. The easier the car is to drive, the better you'll be. You can react to things. You can react to what other cars are doing in front because you trust your car more. If a car is totally gripped up, you've either got to be an absolutely amazing driver to keep that car drifting, or you got to hope that they don't do anything in front of you because you probably can't stop, etc. So yeah, don't think you have to grip your car up. Maintenance on your car, I'm a big one for that. Most people know that's why the car comes to bits so often. It's not because something's wrong. Very rarely is there something wrong with my car. It's what people don't think about enough. They think if their car's wrong. I've heard people say so often, well, there's nothing wrong with the car, so I'm not touching it. But I've took my car to bits at the end of a season, and there's effectively nothing wrong with it, but I've found cracks in places. I've found something that's just about to sort of give up, or you can see that it would give up soon, or just something that's wore out. We spend so much money going to track. We spend so much money traveling and to do these events. When you get there and you can only do like 2 laps because something breaks, and it's a silly thing, it's so annoying, and you've wasted so much money. So prevention is a massive thing, and it's definitely served me well. I've probably won battles because of it. Consistency in a season is huge. I've done well in seasons without actually podiuming or getting right near the top, just because my car's been on the line every time, and you just get more enjoyment. It's like I've had a couple of years where in the past where my car wasn't consistent. It wasn't through lack of maintenance on my side, it was unlucky, but obviously if you don't maintain it as well and you get even more problems, then you're just not going to enjoy it as much. If you turn up, I'd say this year just gone was a prime example. Me and my teammate Matt Smith turning up, and everyone notices the bonnet is never up. We're just having fun out off the track in the pits, and then just jumping in our cars and going out and having the crack with the car. Okay, sponsorship, a bit of a funny one. As far as I'm concerned, too many people worrying about sponsorship, which some might think that's funny coming from me, as I'm quite well sponsored, but the honest truth is the amount of time I've been doing it, I didn't focus on sponsorship. I just enjoyed drifting, paying for it myself as much as I could, and basically that's what did it. People say, how do you go for sponsorship? Well, you enjoy it, and you show that you enjoy it. You just put yourself across right and let time sort of go by. So too many people think they're going to say they're going to start drifting, just as an example. It could be any motorsport, but drifting for a start is you're not going to come into drifting, and even if you go and win an event or win a championship, you're not just suddenly going to get sponsors. That's not what sponsorship is. It's basically another business beside the driving. So you've got to accept you're going to have to put money into it yourself. You're going to have to put effort in, whether it be going out working, doing extra hours, finding something else you can do. It is going to cost you money. No one's going to just suddenly pay for you to go drifting. It's a hobby at the end of the day, and you've got to pay for it. So my opinion is, don't focus too much on sponsorship. Enjoy the sport for what it is. Do your social media, do all the things that you enjoy doing, but do it because you enjoy doing it, not just solely to get a sponsor. And some of it will rely on luck. Some of it's been luck with myself, some of it's been hard work, but you sort of make your luck. One of my sponsors came from what was a follower, a fan, whatever you want to call them, now a good friend as it happens, but they passed me on to one of the companies that sponsor me now. So it was sort of luck, but the fact that I made myself approachable and we just enjoyed the sport for what it was. So you're gonna have to sort of let it take its time. It doesn't happen overnight, sponsorship. Having a team, which obviously we did last year basically, and I think it is good having a team. Most of the time we've not had a team. It's been me and Karina going on our own generally, and we still enjoy it because we tend to mingle in with a lot of other people. We've been like an adopted team member at many teams. Slide Motorsport was one of the main ones where we used to go. Nearly ended up on the team with them. That's another story, but we didn't. But we treated ourselves like we were part of the team. They treated us like we was part of the team, and it does make a massive difference because sometimes when you're on your own, more on the competitive side really, I don't think it matters so much in practice. But in competitive drifting, if you feel like you've got a real good team around you, like say for instance when we used to park up by Slide, they weren't our actual team, but because we felt like they were, if a couple of their drivers got knocked out and I was to come in, obviously Karina can't do nothing with the major with the car and all that, well I could pull in the pits and I'd have 3 people jump on the car. So it is really good because as a driver you struggle, like you're under pressure when things are going on. So to have people around you, a team is a funny thing because a team is like, now me and Matt are a team. We are a proper team because we've got the cars the same colour and everything. You don't have to have that. A team is a group of guys, girls who turn up together and who work together. So, you know, team's a funny thing. I love this. I was getting a little bit, let's say, not bored, but I've been doing it so long, I was looking for something fresh, and that's how I ended up asking Matt to come on board properly, trying to getting him some of my sponsors, let's say, and putting us together. We were already a team effectively, but we weren't Team Betty Surf. It was like Matt was Volkscraft because that's his business. I was Team Betty Surf at that time, but we did everything together. We always turned up. We had a laugh together. But now there's a few extra things we do together, and we feel like it just gives it that edge. In the background, it really does help. It got us to a couple of events last year. One being Pembury for a big show, and that was probably the highlight of 2024 for me, and I think Matt. I think if you asked him it would be, because we turned up as a team. We were treated really well. You're out with Formula 1 cars and rally cars and things like that. So yeah, the team thing is really good. But like I say, it doesn't have to be a set team. It's a group of people who are enjoying themselves basically, and that's why it makes a difference in the pits as well as on track. So one final thing I would say to anybody getting into or already into drifting is keep it sustainable for you, because every single person is different. What's sustainable for me is not sustainable for somebody else, and vice versa. You know, there's people who can do stuff easier than I can, and I'm probably doing it easier than somebody else, and especially youngsters coming into it. So do it so that you can keep it going long term. To race away and make it look like you can afford it and then you're gone the next year, it's no fun. You're better off keeping it within yourself and enjoying it, and the one big word is enjoy it.